Johnny Five from the Flowbots once said, "There's a war going on for your mind." Well, there's a war on the poor. And unfortunately, not really anybody's talking about it. But that's what I'm here for. Here for the people. What's good, y'all? UW back here again here in 2022. Let's get into this vital conversation. Some could say that there's always been a war on the poor for the last 10,000 years all across the globe, right? From slavery and war, you can serfdom, the aristocracy versus the non, the bourgeoisie versus the non. But it's never been this intricate. It's never been this multi-layered. It's never been this systemic. And this set in so many barriers of access. It's never been this duplicitous. It's never been this both covert and overt. You say, how can that be simultaneously? That's how insane what's going on is, right? The group, the OJs, for the love of money. They did that song back in the day, back in the 70s, right? I believe it's 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, 1 Timothy 6:10 that talks about, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. It's been an age-old problem, right? There's a song that Bob Dylan did back in the day, back in the 60s, The Ballad of Hollis Brown, which Rise Against did an absolutely phenomenal, stellar tribute cover, back in 2012. And they played a clip back from the 60s, around, I believe, 65. It talked about a war on poverty, and President Johnson has passed a certain bill. Lyndon B. Johnson. And if you know anything about him, you know he was not for the people. Okay. Racist and more. That was back in the 60s, right? Here we are in 2022. Let's actually look at what's going on. Because so many people, they say things like, get a job and do this, just grind and hustle. Let's start with the job aspect before we start getting to enterprise and more, right? But before we do that, what is a young man and a young woman to do today, right? Anyone calling Gen Y, the millennials, Gen Z, entitled and spoiled. Exactly what world are you living in? Gen X was literally the one generation in history, and yes, they had problems, and there's no question, but they were the most blessed generation economically in really human history if you look across the span, and that should tell you how screwed up, fucked up the game is, right? But okay, let's see you do things legitimately. Let's say you go to college, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt off rip that many people can't afford to ever pay back for. And then what jobs are there for? Well, you're underqualified or overqualified. Even if you're making $50,000 a year, which most don't. I know the average take-home pay is about 40,000. So how long is it going to take you to pay that back if you get a job, right? Anybody remember the Great Recession from '08 and up till like 2012, 2015? Right. Encourage, okay, young man, he feeling pressure, he feeling the temptation of the streets. Quick money, fast money. Ends up in prison, potentially. Or just legal troubles overall. Ends up finds himself in dangerous positions, right? Because he's trying to make money. Because that's the encouragement, right? Young lady encouraged to sell her body to make some quick, fast cash, right? And it's promoted to be lucrative. Oh, and let's talk about the jobs, right? You do realize that you need resources in order to make capital, make money. We're not even talking about real capital, just to be able to make stuff. You do realize you need a place of residence, right? People say just get a job, right? You need a place of residence. You need to be able a place to live, an apartment, house, condo, something, right? Well, what happens if you're involuntarily homeless? Makes it a little bit difficult now, doesn't it? For most of y'all, for none of y'all that ever never been there. Oh, you need a contact number. You kind of need money for a phone. Either have it on or to purchase one, right? It's kind of difficult to contact without a phone. Oh, email and internet. Well, there's a lot of things with online if they're hiring or if they're, you can do online commerce. Well, you either need Wi-Fi, you need a laptop or computer of some sort. Um, you need, to be able to have an email access. There's that. You need that kind of access. So you need technological access. So that's three basic barriers right there. Oh, should we talk about we'll get into the commoditization of everything in a second. But that's three basic access. Oh, to be able to get most jobs, well, you either need a driver's license or you need a car. But in order to get a car, you kind of need money ahead of time, unless somebody gives you something. So you're already putting the poor behind the eight ball. I mean, the real poor. You're putting them, those who are in the cracks of society. You're putting them behind the eight ball. There, and especially for young men, there's no social safety net. No, no, never that. All right, let's move on. Right. So food costs. We see that they're rising. Now they've been held down, but I remember as a kid, a family of 5 or 6 could potentially get a full, week's worth of meal for $100. You could maybe stretch it out, maybe 200. Now that's 1 to 2 people potentially for a week, depending on how much someone consumes and what we're eating. Because now even junk food, now even what was used to be cheap is no longer cheap anymore. Anybody check prices natural gas? People talk about the price of gasoline, whatever. Well, that's if you have a vehicle to begin with, right? Heating, utilities, the rent constantly on the spike, the cost of living going up, and you barely making anything. A lot of places, entry level jobs, minimum wage, and more. And I'm opposed to wages, but I'm just talking about things as they are, right? And then people are like, well, you just go for higher paying. Well, there's only a limited amount of positions. And people don't just want to hire without experience or without this or without this degree or without this, that, and the third. There's always barriers of access. There are always people talking about glass ceilings. Well, there's a lot of miniature ones. And since this isn't a meritocracy that'll actually pay you what you're worth, a lot of people be busting their ass. They be working hard, grinding, and are taking home not much. And then there's the taxation. Taxes on everything, sales tax, if you have a home, property tax, which most of us can afford. And we'll get to the homes and the mortgage in a second. But, there's a tax on your income. And then they'll do things like send money towards unemployment instead of giving me what I owe. And then they fool people. People voted for foolishness and they fool people. Benefits, dental benefit, this benefit, that benefit, all these insurance benefits, which insurance is a scam. Anybody that knows the game, and I'll talk in another entire video on what insurance actually is and where it originated from. But let's just put it in the current aspect, it's a scam. It is. And so literally your take home pay ain't jack. It's jack shit. You're barely bringing home anything. Now you have to pay for all of these things for basic, electrical bill, light, just basic stuff, right? Food, and then at the end, who has any money left over for savings? They say savings. Who can afford to save? Yes, some people waste money, but what is there really to have to go out to do, and even to flood money into the economy, right? What money do you have? What real money do you have? Do you have any money to pass on to future generations, generational wealth, or any decent ones, an inheritance? What is that for most people, right? Bare minimum, 80% of people, they don't see a lick of anything of inheritance. So literally, especially the young men, have to just restart every single generation. You're putting most people 3 to 6 generations behind the eight ball, depending on the race. If you're black, Irish, and Native American / indigenous, you're 5 to 6 generations behind the 8 ball already. They already screwed you over. You're fortunate to become a success financially. You're just fortunate. I don't want to hear it. Folks can come at me. I'm talking historical fact right now. Look at the numbers, right? Not saying everybody broke, but just to become in the potentiality. Come on, let's be honest. And maybe you do make it for yourself. But how many years you got to work? How many hours you got to grind out? How many risks you got to take? Because if you work at a regular job, yeah, you can forget about that. So there's that aspect, right? Oh, owning a home, buying a home. Anybody check the price of real estate? First of all, there's not that many because they're buying out all the houses and things of that nature. They're buying out all these buildings and turning them into, tenements, turning them into apartments. So you are forced to rent now. So there's that aspect, which myself and others have been talking about since 2020. But also, who can afford to own a home if you're young? Very few. You're fortunate if you are. It's comedians have even become made it a joke. We're literally applauding people for buying houses now. When that was not the case 50, 60 years ago, even 30, 40 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago. And getting a loan, exorbitant prices. Oh, and here's another thing, lines of credit. And this is another thing, even trying to get a $1,500 loan. Their banks and other institutions, financial institutions, and nobody that's got any means is asking for no $1,500 line of credit or $500. And if they give it to you, the interest rate, you're going to be paying a third more or double the amount, right? In interest. So that leaves you, and because they want debt slavery, they want credit hell for you. So you got creditors all up on your ass. If you get a line of credit, because it's hard to build up your credit score, but it's with the quickness for that to drop. And oh yeah, depending on who you are, your background, your sex, your race, your ethnicity, and more, that will determine your credit score without you ever doing anything. Some people have a naturally higher credit score than others. They ain't doing jack. It's the games they play. It's the games. It's to keep you poor. And if you slip below, you're screwed. You are fucked over. It's the reality of the situation. Right? And then enterprise, they don't talk about that. But let's say entrepreneurship. You're trying to become an entrepreneur. Well, in this one, you need capital. Pure and simple. Pure and simple. Even to open up like food truck and something that's like what's going to cost you $30,000 to $50,000. Something simple as a food truck. Most manual. And people say, yeah, I remember I was in a Starbucks using the Wi-Fi probably, I want to say, about a month or so ago, and heard these young ladies, and I say young ladies, they're around my age or so, talking like, oh, you can, people talking about wasting money. And they were right, and I am about people, blowing $200-$300 a night. But they were saying, oh, you can start a business for $200. No, the hell you can't. You need at least $1,000. What kind of business? Y'all aren't starting a business. You're not really even $1,000. Like, no, you're not starting a business for no $200. That's lunacy. That's lunatic. You're not doing business at that point. You're not doing a real enterprise. And some can try to come at me. No, trust me. I on a personal, I've put up money in various endeavors to try to do business. Okay. You're not, no, you need at least $1,000, bare minimum. Bare minimum. If you're doing any real, not no little, oh, well, I have a career. No, I'm talking actual business. And really runs you a lot more. Do you know what your regular grocery store is going to cost you? Somewhere, if it's a new and everything's new and somewhere around $5 million. Anywhere from $1 to $5 million. That's a basic grocery store. People don't look at the cost of actual anything. They don't look at overhead. If even without a brick and mortar, you have to have access to a lot of things. Access to tools, access if you're talking, any form of trade and whatnot. You have to have access to product, access to this, access to that. Pay for gas, etc., etc. And then what they've done is that you need all these insurances and licenses and stuff. This was not the case in the 19th century. It was not the case in the early 20th century, even through the mid 20th century. You need all of this. which is why literally immigrants fresh off the boat could create a business and provide for his family. But now, oh, good luck with that. Oh, and even the oldest enterprise in human history, it's not prostitution, ladies and gentlemen. The oldest form of enterprise is agriculture, it's farming. Good luck trying to afford the land, and as well as good luck trying to farm and outcompete with these big farms and whatnot, with the agricultural industry. Good luck with that. Good luck trying to survive. I'm not trying to be dismissive or pessimistic, I'm talking about the reality. Who can even afford to be a farmer today? A farmer, the most basic form of enterprise. Who can afford that? Let's be honest. Having a plot of land runs you how much? You see? Doing things legitimately. And oh yeah, let's say you're able to do. Oh, maybe you get a business loan, maybe not, because you need capital, and this is that. They may or may not give you some. So good luck with that. Good luck. So you're gonna have to do it out of pocket. Most of us were barely, making it as is. Been there. So let's say your business goes under. Let's say, because you need, and another reason why you need capital, you need to be able to survive for at least the first year, which is why most businesses, up to 90% of businesses go out of business within the first year. They don't have there could be a number of mistakes that it made in the learning experience, but they maybe just didn't have the capital. They didn't have the war chest. They didn't have the cash, the war cash. And even if you know warfare militaristically, you need funds, resources to be able to fight a war. It's the same thing in business. You need resources, and if you don't have it, well, you're shit's creek without a paddle. And let's say you took out a loan, now you're in further deeper debt. Now what do you do? And maybe you put up your home or car or vehicles or whatever you have as collateral, and that's another thing. Another reason they don't want to give out loans to the poor, because you have to have collateral. They want to be able to have their teeth into you everything. It's predatory. These unscrupulous loans, man. The predation right now with the interest rates and more. Scripture talked against that. It talked against high interest rates and doing all this extra, but people didn't want to play by that. They don't want to actually play by righteous rules. They don't actually want to do right by people. They call it business. I don't call that business. And if you're just like, screw it, I need the money, and you just take and you sign, because if you don't, well, you don't have money. You're screwed in this society completely. Oh, just get money. Oh, there are ways to make money. Sure, there are ways. A lot of them are not necessarily good. A lot are nefarious, but even the ones that are, there are a lot of ways to make money out here. If you have access to it, and if you have the means to be able to do it. Some of them require you travel a long ways. Well, if you don't have a vehicle, well, that just, oh, there's all these delivery, da da da. Again, if you don't have a vehicle, or you don't have a certain type of vehicle, because they won't let you do it in everyone. And let's say another thing with lack of knowledge and doing different stuff, a lot of young men who would go into trades, well, good luck with construction and stuff. Good luck with manual labor. Sure, you might, but good luck. And it'll be a small business. It won't be anything, lucrative. And you have to build up clientele. You have to build up a customer base. You have to advertise. You have to do all of this, right? And everything's a gamble in life. Anything worth, uh, success it takes a risk. It's a gamble. But right now, you're literally gambling with your life in a lot of ways, whether it be proverbial or literally. I want to talk about the mental health issues and the suicide rates and more. You don't want to talk about starvation. And I've been mainly talking about stuff here in the United States, but I know there's a lot that affects worldwide. Literally, everything's commoditized. So now, if you don't have money, how do you live? Seriously, how do you live without money now? Even trying to do anything outside of society. You can't go off and pioneer anymore. You can't trailblaze. You can't go out to sea. You can't do this. There are laws for everything now that restrict if you're trying to be a law-abiding citizen. They're ready to send them boys, the policia and more, to come and get you for breaking something that they don't agree with. But they can do stuff. They can do, powers that be the elites. They can do, closed doors deals. They can do after hours trading and all that stuff there. They can do unscrupulous things, and it's just the way that things are, or it's white collar crime that they may or may not be caught, but in the process they're making millions, if not billions of dollars. Make it make sense. And they have unlimited access to credit. And I'm not hating on the wealthy. I'm not. But I'm just talking about what things are. Because I actually don't have an issue with wealth. I really don't. But I do have an issue with an unjust, unequitable society that literally wastes potential of so many young men and young women. So many people who could benefit and be industrious, lucrative, great contributors to society, but because they have to slave away at a job. And if they don't slave away, then you're fucked. If you choose not to play the game of the matrix, you're fucked. If you choose not to get in line and say, yes, master, and be a slave to the system, you are fucked. Now, they'll have a safety net, and I'm not saying that those among us who aren't able-bodied and stuff shouldn't be able to, be able to live and stuff. But why is it that young men like myself find themselves out of work, who are capable, able-bodied, who are competent, whatever, find themselves out of work? There's a permanent unemployed class. I didn't know that, probably did you? There's always at least 4% unemployment. And then we don't want to talk about underemployment, which is never really reported. We don't want to talk about the games that companies play where, okay, they'll pay you this, but, oh, I'm sorry, you're only going to be working part-time. You're not going to be working 40 hours. 30 hours or less. Who want you to be professional, but good luck. Even some of them don't even want to get back to you, communicate. Some of them will work you like a dog, work you like a slave, or there's so few employees that you might be working hours, but you're dead tired when you get home. You can't do anything with your life. Oh, we need you in. We need you today. Call you at any God-given time. God, any goddamn time. It's ridiculous what's being done out here. And again, no meritocracy. You should be, if you providing $30 worth of value to the company, you should be making $30. I don't care what your position is. If you providing value, you should agree upon it contractually. Not everybody should be capped at the same thing because not everybody provides the same value. It doesn't incentivize. They tell you, oh, you work hard. No, that's a myth. Working hard can work as a slave and break it back for the rest of your life. Oh, and if you literally do get injured, well, best of luck to you. We ain't got nothing for you. I'm talking about workers' comp and stuff. Oh, and I didn't even get into the legal system. Oh, we ain't even getting to the legal system where there is a literal war on the poor, and there has been. You can go back to days with crack and heroin and more, right? With the epidemics, which the CIA and more literally pumped that shit in the streets. You can go back to that. You can go back to the fact of literally family court systems that literally rape men and how they conduct themselves, treat men as second and third class citizens in the United States. You can do that. Where segregation is completely fine. You can do that. Child support, anybody? Anybody want to talk about that? Anybody want to talk about you get a DUI, literally take away your license? Well, good luck trying to hold certain jobs. Yeah, good luck with that. And so how are you going to be able to pay? Please explain. Please. Going to prison just because them making money? Private prison industrial complex, anybody? Military industrial complex, anybody? Literally having young men volunteer so that they can have a potential better life for the military instead of legitimately fighting actual, if you're going to have a military, legitimately having men who are capable and competent and are fighting for a legitimate cause. Nope, nope, not doing that. Gotta be imperialistic. This is why people don't want to talk about it, because now you're attacking the entire system, and now you're going against the powers that are literally paying your paycheck. Why was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. assassinated? Well, it wasn't for civil rights. It wasn't because he was dealing with race and these different issues. I believe it was April 3rd, 1967. Back in 67, he breaks his silence on Nam. You can look it up. Right here on YouTube. While it's still up. And a year later, April 4th, 1968, he's assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. And he knew, just like Malcolm X knew he would be assassinated, just like the Apostle Paul knew he was going to die, just like others know and predicted death, just like Michael Jackson knew his time was coming, all for different reasons, but still, when you go against the system, well, you better be ready to pay the piper. You better be able to deal with the consequences. The founding fathers, they understood this. They knew that if they would have lost, they were facing hangman's noose for treason. Pirates, Golden Age pirates, they realized what it was. A lot of revolutionaries, anarchists, socialists, communists, and more, they know what it is. They know what's at stake. The fact that there are labor rights, workers' rights, the fact that you have a 40-hour work week, 8-hour work day, the fact that there's child labor laws, that there's overtime and minimum wage is because of anarchists, communists, and socialists literally standing up and saying no and willing to sacrifice everything, including their lives, going on strikes and such, actually unionizing, not this fake cartel unions that are going on out here. That's another thing. They use the unions as fucking cartels to limit the access to pressure both the clients and customers to pay exorbitant rates more than they should, as well as to funnel people into joining their thing, which they don't serve a purpose. Actually, they don't represent the people. Most of them, anyways. Most of them aren't unions. You want to talk about how the mob did? Look at the unions today. What do most of them actually do? But do we want to have that conversation? The war on the poor, man. I'm not trying to have this because I was actually planning on this being a bit shorter, but this is the opening salvo. This is an introduction because we can go into deep layers of each of these topics. That's how intricate this system is. Me talking nearly 30 minutes is the basis of what's going on out here. But people are just going to keep believing the same old lie. People are just going to keep pushing the narrative until what have I been warning people on the ground, people in my personal life and more that I meet, people I've worked with within the next 3 to 5 years. I've been saying this since last year. Unless the trajectory massively changes, drastically changes, you're about to have mass unemployment, mass involuntary homelessness, and mass poverty, the likes of which make the Great Depression look cute. And when you have the mirror, 2020s, the roaring 20s, and now it's 2020s, a century later, because things didn't change, because the system has been put on the life support by the Biden and Harris administration. Things have been in a state of decline and decay since the 70s. Things were literally held in stasis after the Great Recession. Nothing really ever changed. You didn't fix any of this stuff and these shit. So all these bubbles are and now you see inflation more. They can no longer. You can't keep kicking the can down the road. You must pay the piper. You cannot keep doing this and acting like resources and more are infinite. That there's a system based on infinite exponential growth, but somebody's always at the bottom. It's a system of exploitation. Karl Marx was right in a lot of ways. He wasn't right in everything, but he was right in a lot of ways. When you have a system of infinite exploit, you must always have someone on the bottom in order for you to get to the top. Well, it's a house of cards at the end of the day. It'll never last. Especially the way that things are played, that you're literally playing speculative games. The stock market isn't. The stock market is a market of speculation, and that is it. Even crypto has become that toxically in a lot of ways. Think about it. Really sit back and think about it and do the history. If you question anything I said, do your own research. I always tell that with people in any videos or anything I ever do. If you ever question anything I say, which I don't mind people do, you can be skeptical. You don't have to believe me. Scrutinize me all you want to, but do your damn research. Study things for yourself. Look into the data. Look into the different aspects. Find out what some of these companies are doing. Find out what these different power brokers are doing with different things in stock market and different stuff they're doing. Educate yourself. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. That's what Bob Marley said in the Redemption Song. Emancipate yourselves. Free your mind. Stop believing the lies, the rhetoric, the propaganda, and the narratives that you've been indoctrinated, brainwashed, and programmed into believing since you were a child. It's been beaten to your head in a school system that's not an education system, by the mainstream media who are paid puppets in a lot of them. Literally, most news outlets are owned by, you know, 6 companies. Come on now, man. The CIA and more literally have declassified information and documents to show that they've literally either bought or they've influenced and pressured the media, where there is the death of journalism and more that we can talk about and do on this channel. And if you know me personally, we can always have this conversation and discussion. We can debate, we can clash it out. But at the end of the day, I'm about educating the people. Knowledge is power, but you have to know how to use it, and you have to understand. Knowledge without understanding is dangerous. Knowledge without application is futile. Idleness is the devil's handiwork. A lot of people glimpse at it, but they just stay in line. They're sheeple. And while the world goes to shit or goes to pot, however you want to refer to it, while people suffer of so many preventable diseases, so many preventable maladies, and a lot of it's because they're just happen to be poor. Poor, right? I didn't even get into mental health issues. I didn't even get into all the financial pressure. I didn't get into how it affects your biological, literal physical health, little everything about you, how it affects your family, how being poor, literally, how you don't eat right, you don't get out and exercise, you don't do the basic things. You wonder why the wealthier live longer in a lot of cases is because they have the resources to be able to upkeep their natural health. But we don't have that discussion, do we? A war on the poor is literally in all aspects of life. It's not me whining, bitching, and moaning, complaining about things. No, I'm literally I'm concerned about people. I love people. Concerned about society. Concerned about communities. Concerned about people's lives, man. People die every year. Like millions of people die every year. At least 2 million from lack of being able to go to the bathroom. A place to properly go to the bathroom. People die from starvation, from dehydration, from so many preventable illnesses and ailments. No one sees a problem with this. No one gives a damn that they see people on literally in mass sleeping on the street. No one, there's no problem with this. Everything's just fine. As long as you get your little commodities, the next smartphone. As long as you're good, your family's good. Y'all got a little food in your belly, a little pocket change. As long as you got your cheap goods, everything's fine, right? Give me a break. People say, and I'll leave off on this. People say they want people to do well and have a living wage, and all that kind of stuff, right? But we don't want to talk about the manufacturing that was shipped out of the United States, for example. You don't want to talk about the fact of people don't want to pay for jack prices. They don't want to pay. People don't want to talk about people don't want to support certain businesses. We don't want to have that conversation. Folks discourage you from actually starting a business. You don't want to have that conversation. People don't support, folks they know in their business endeavors. But we don't want to have that conversation. People don't support members in their community. Well, some do. But some folks don't support members of their own community when they try to do things. Oh, you think you better than us. Stupid mentalities. Crab barrel mentality. Crabs in a barrel in a bucket mentality. Just stupid, man. Literally keeping your fellow man in this horrendous, inexcusable, just pathetic state. And yes, Christ, people say, well, didn't Christ say the poor will always be among us? Yeah, that is true. But there's poor, and then there is unlivable. There is an extreme difference of being, like, technically, let's say somebody's making $50,000 a year and someone's making 100,000, like, in that community, like, that person making $50,000 and, like, the rest of the street's making, like, 100,000 or more. That 50,000 is technically poor to them, but that person can survive, okay? That person can maybe have a decent life. That family might, they might, not be able to do as much, but they can do a little something, something. Versus you making $15,000 or less a year. It's a huge difference. Okay? Unexpected one to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me your thoughts on the matter. I know some of y'all gonna have a hell of a lot to say. So this is partially what this channel is for, an open, free discussion where you will not be censored. Whether you agree or disagree with me, if you have any suggestions, any things, please say it. If you think I'm off my rocker, please. But at this point, I don't see how you can refute at least 95% of what I said. But have at it. Again, I don't, censor people unless you're talking foolishness and trolling. I don't censor people. Let's have at it. Let's be civil, please, as well.